gentlemen, it is 3 o'clock,
We're okay?
daylight savings time. We have commission members Charlie Athey and David Bowman online. Everybody else is here. We have not just a quorum, but 100%, so, and a busy agenda. So let's go ahead and start. Let's start with the minutes of the meeting from August 7th, which seemed like several months ago.
It does
We
seem like
did move it up because of Mako, as I recall.
correct.
Any additions, corrections?
No.
I made a couple minor tweaks that I gave to Rose, but nothing of substance. So assuming you trust me, let's have a motion to approve the minutes as edited.
So moved.
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Sandy did not get in, but we will have other motions. Good try. Under Chairman's report, it's kind of an educational agenda. Back on August 20th, the community college came in and met with the commissioners and talked about 3 of their major programs. One was agriculture, and that probably took up half of their presentation, but also manufacturing and their healthcare programs. Very impressive what the community college is doing. And I don't say that just as an alumnus, but because it was good stuff. Yes, dear. And Jamie set that slide deck out a day or two after the commissioners' meeting. Hopefully you had a chance to look at it. It's probably in your inbox, or you can go to the commissioners' meeting and view it. It's the August 20th meeting. But as I say, it was an excellent presentation by half a dozen members of the staff, and I personally was impressed. The other matter is, you can pass this out, the new superintendent of schools, Mary Boswell McComas, has scheduled a business roundtable. She would like to meet with the business community of Kent County and have a couple-hour discussion about what we think the school should be doing, and she can talk about what she has in mind in her week or two officially with school started. I think she spoke to Jamie's Rotary Club, and a pretty impressive person, and we would like to encourage commission members to spread the word to any business friends that you may think could benefit from this. I know Jamie and I are both registered. You can RSVP online. Paul is registered. We can take him over if we get a quorum. So my chairman's report is on education this time around, and we've got a lot to be proud of, and a new superintendent with a clean slate. So we'll see how that works.
And Dick, I'll add that we have invited Tom Porter from Kent County High School, the CTE program coordinator, to also come in and talk about CTE programs to the county commissioners. In October, I'll have to get the date, but I'll make sure I send that out to the commission members. So if you can attend, that would be
You're getting a little bit of
great.
feedback.
Okay, I'm getting feedback.
Just work a little closer, and you'll be fine.
Closer?
Yeah.
Okay.
As has been our practice, we have been inviting mayors or town managers or both of the incorporated municipalities in Kent County. Last month, we had an excellent presentation from Millington. I think those slides are still available. And today, we've invited John Carroll of Galena and David Foster of Chestertown. And I think we're going alphabetically, John. So
Lucky me.
if you would come to the table, and we'll talk about real estate in Kent County.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it. I don't have a big fancy presentation, but I'm here to just talk about some of the things we have going on economic development-wise in the town of Galena.
And tourism.
And tourism.
Yep.
And tourism, too. So as the mayor of a little teeny tiny town, I also serve as de facto city manager up there. So I kind of wear a lot of hats every day, and remotely managing all the staff, from my real estate office and to where else I'm at in the country or the world. Our biggest thing actually coming up right now, we received a petition for annexation of roughly about 100 acres, which is in the property that's right behind our town hall. So Galena's kind of set up in like 4 quadrants, basically. Main intersection and 4 quadrants around it. And this would be basically the third quadrant that's never been developed over time, over the last 300 years of the town's existence. So the property owner has petitioned us to bring the whole property into town limits. About 11 acres of that 100 roughly were already in the town limits. But when they came to us and asked about what they could do with the property, I said, I'd really rather see the whole thing in so that we can do a better project.
Is it a
long-term.
single ownership, John?
Yes.
Okay.
Right now, it's all one single family that owns it. And so they heard that request. We've met with the folks a number of times. They came with some draft concepts of some general ideas of some zoning they would like to do that long-term. And there's some terrain in areas in there that's really not buildable area, but has some really great environmental features. There's a big pond back there and some ravines and some wooded areas that we could actually do some nature trails and add some environmental type parks that we don't have right now in our town. And they were very receptive to granting that back to the town. And some of their concepts they have right now, and it's all very, this is just a concept because until it's in the town limits in our corporate boundaries, we cannot zone or plan anything out there at this time. But looking at some higher density commercial in one area, some mixed use as you come into the middle of the town, some denser housing, and then as you go further away from the main intersection towards the rural areas, back towards what will be the county long-term, there'll be larger, more estate-sized lots, and possibly a few farmettes. So we kind of do a real mix, and that's why I told them, I want to see a mix of housing types, commercial types, so that there's something for everyone in this. Not just a tract house development with a bunch of cul-de-sacs. We have a lot of those all over the world, and they're not that impressive. So, but they've been very good working with us so far. Again, we're just in the initial stage. They put their petition together. We introduced it in our last meeting. We're now going to be working with our annexation agreement between both parties, and then once that's finally drafted, then we'll have our public hearings and go through the rest of the process. So then we'll
What's
be coming to the
best
county.
guess on timing?
Looking to try to have in the next 60 days the draft agreement done and public hearings scheduled. And then after that, we have to go to the county and then through all the other state agencies for review and comments. So probably about 6 to 12 months, I would imagine, to get through the legal part of it all. From that point on, once we get there, then the property owner can petition to zone the property. And then they'll come to our planning and zoning. We'll go through the process of what folks want to see in there, not just the concept from the developer, but what does the community want as well.
John, can I ask you a question? I always get confused about
Sure.
the chicken and the egg thing
Sure.
here on the zoning issues. If you annex before you deal with the zoning issues, two questions.
Sure.
What do you have to do in terms of infrastructure, water and sewer,
Okay,
to accommodate 100 acres coming into town?
sure.
And two, if it is a part of the town at the time you're looking to do zoning, what authority does planning and zoning, county planning and zoning have relative to zoning?
Once it's brought into the corporate boundaries of the town, now, there is a 5-year period by state law with annexations that once it goes from a county to a municipality, that the county zoning would stand for 5 years. The commissioners can choose to waive that, which has been practiced on others in the past. That's up to them. If that is waived, then we can zone it to whatever suits our community and what our land use plan says, our comp plan says. This parcel's already in our growth area for our comp plan, because they had indicated about 5 years ago that they were interested but never really pursued anything further. So when we did our comp plan update, we added that one, and actually, kind of the whole area, everything surrounding, all the large parcels surrounding, we went ahead and just added those in our growth area so that in the future, we don't have to do amendments to the plan. With that said, when the planner was helping us put our comprehensive plan together, he kind of did some spot zoning, or not spot zoning, but areas, overlay areas, even within the county. If you were to grow, these would be, I guess, beneficial ways to kind of zone out, just in blocks. And so we kind of have some general idea where we'll go with that. But again, that comes down to our planning commission. Once it becomes part of the town, if there's a 5-year waiver or we're past the 5 years, it's 100% the municipality's zoning district, because how state law works, we're co-equal forms of government.
And I presume if your annexation goes expeditiously, that you would request that waiver from the county.
Most likely, yes. Yes. We'll see how everything, unfolds at that point. So we're very initial. They just came to us last month with a petition. We introduced it. Mayor and council said, okay, we agree to move forward with drafting agreements to take it to the next step. And then we go from the public from there.
Do you have a full-time planner, or I'm not familiar with your structure?
So we have a zoning coordinator right now who works for us. She handles mainly permits, code enforcement, and just general things, because we're a town of 700 people.
Yeah.
So when we have a project like a comp plan or revision of our land use ordinance, those we hire out. We'll hire out a planning agency for that, or an engineering firm. This would be something most likely I'll have to hire out that, or a consultant for a period of time to help us manage those sorts of things.
Sure.
I know a lot of general parts about zoning and government, but I'm not an expert in planning, I will say that.
Yeah. And then the development itself would be kind of farmed out.
Yes, yes. So the landowner then will be required, and this is pretty standard in any annexation agreement. They'll have to do all the engineering. They'll have to bring that to, now we have to have a review, and it has to meet our standards of what we say as well. But they'll be paying for all engineering of the streets, the infrastructure, the sidewalks, the stormwater, and all of that. And to answer your question too, going back to infrastructure, Paula, we have capacity, plenty of capacity, because we did upgrades to water and sewer systems 10 years ago, right? Yeah. So we have a plant that it's rated for 110,000 gallons. We have 80,000 gallons of that for the town's capacity. The remainder is the county's capacity for the Georgetown connections. We're using around 20,000 gallons. So there's a ton of capacity still in that system.
Great.
And water, we still have enough for at least another 200 EDUs there right now.
Great.
We launched into Q&A before perhaps you finished your formal presentation.
Yeah, sorry.
Continue if you want.
Sure. So that's the bigger one. It'll over the next 6 to 12 months, you'll hear more about that. But, I'm excited to see something. Every 20 to 30 years, you want to see some sort of a growth area in a little area, because that's what keeps you alive. But we have to manage it correctly. That's all. Take your time. There's no rush. We don't have to do it tomorrow, but we'll get it right. So that's one of the big items that'll be coming up. We did hire an events coordinator this year for the town, which is a very part-time role, but that's been really great, honestly, to try to get engagement and activities and things going on in the town and breathe life into it. She's also kind of working with us, sort of a little bit of economic development. So she developed a Saturday market. We had one that was kind of going, but she's really developed a nice core group of crafters and people who are secondhand things or making cottage industry products at their home. And so what we're looking at is trying to find a space in town that we can purchase a building or a property. We've identified a few to create an economic development incubator site. As I traveled around the state over the last year, visiting a lot of other cities and towns with my municipal hat on, I did notice a lot of places like Rock Hall has, where it has the little tiny town type village at their four corners. A lot of towns had a very similar project like that to try to breathe life back into their downtowns. And then so it gave these cottage industries a small footprint and a small investment to make versus, okay, I don't have $500,000 to buy a building, create a business. That's what we're looking at, and we're going to try to use that. And so Jody has really done a great job of getting them all rallied up and getting some interest. So next step is find a spot, get some funding together to build this out, and then hopefully we can start some new businesses in our town. And as we have our new growth area, hopefully there'll be places that for full-time where they can transition into long-term. And our other project that we're working on, this would go into tourism and economic development. We received a grant from the Kim Lamphere's National Bikeways program through the state of Maryland, through MDOT, for a walking trail. But it's going to be a multi-phased, long-term. We're trying to connect, which just might actually work out really great with the new development, kind of from the center of town out towards the firehouse and Olivet Hill, because those areas, there's no sidewalks to, there's no way to really walk there. You have to drive everywhere. And people are usually walking on the side of the highway. Not safe. So we're hoping that will actually work. We get the designs and stuff done with this development in the future on that parcel. The next leg of it is going from the town out into the county to Toll Park. Great county park, very underutilized because it's not connected to anything. It's sort of like on an island by itself. And then from there, long-term, we're looking at some feasibility studies that actually our engineer is reviewing right now, and he'll come back with some concepts. That'll be a long-term, what we can look at is, how do you connect to Georgetown? And that's what really brings in the tourism economic development wing here. I'm not sure how we get there just yet. That might be another decade or so down the road, but it will be something that we can at least work around, and we'll deliver that over to the county to kind of take the next steps on it. But right now, we've been kind of managing internally, getting some of the engineering done, and managing that grant, and then we can work with the county on, okay, how do we do implementation and go after capital funding for that, so, for the construction of it. But that's been a big project for the last 10 years. I've been trying to figure it out. How do we get there? How do we get money for this? And we finally got some funds for design and engineering, so now first step will be complete. Hopefully by the end of this year, that engineering will be done. And then from there, that's really kind of about it. I mean, I think you'll see, the same thing like Millington has, is the pressure for growth going on, because we're on a 301 corridor up there. The next closest place down from where the growth is occurring in Delaware. Not that we necessarily need to be what they are, but we can do our own version that makes sense for our community. So,
Let's go back to question and answers. I saw a flyer on an event, I think in October, some kind of big community yard sale. Is that what your new event coordinator is doing?
Yeah, so she works on all the events. So tonight we have our 9/11 service at the firehouse at 6 o'clock. The last Saturday in September, we will have our first movie nights going on in the park, which will continue on for the next 2 months. October 12th, we have our Appreciation Day, which is our appreciation for our residents and volunteers for all the organizations that make our community great. So we have a little festival in our park for that. And then in December, we'll also have kind of like a Santa and Christmas and holiday festival that we're going to try to put on our first time this year in our park as well. We're looking at doing a lights show. So it'll be an evening and nighttime thing in our park. So we're actually going to be inviting residents to decorate. They get a 10 by 10 square, and they can put up whatever they want for Christmas light display. And we'll judge from there, kind of going around our trail in our park. And then we'll do, Santa Claus and hot cocoa, and we'll show a Christmas-themed movie that evening out there.
Other questions for Mayor Carroll?
So I'm a cyclist, and I was just through Galena this morning, and in front of the school, they've got that curb right in the shoulder.
Okay,
It's very dangerous.
okay.
I mean, you could spray paint it at the very least, but you're biking along, and all of a sudden there's a...
Oh, where the bump outs are?
Yeah, the bump out,
Okay.
that's very dangerous.
And that's a state highway on that one.
Yeah, just so
but we'll
then
put it
if,
out
when they
there.
come talk to you or something, or
Sure.
maybe you could just paint it fluorescent or something
Okay.
temporarily, because it blends right in,
Yeah, and the reason they did those bump outs in there is because the folks from the school board and the school system were coming to us complaining about that there was, people were flying through
Right,
there,
right.
and it was unsafe for the kids, so they were trying to create obstacles to slow the traffic down.
Yeah, they did.
With that. So there was a reason why they did this, but I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, and there's a lot of cyclists going through Galena, so
Sure.
especially when you got the ride to see and all of that, so it's kind of a liability for somebody, but.
Sure,
And
sure.
so what's
but
going
I'll
on?
pass
Okay.
that along. I'll
Yeah.
pass that along with
Thanks.
State Highway.
Yeah, and what's going on with the bank?
Oh, so the bank was purchased by Dr. Otero, who has Galena Vet Clinic.
Yep.
And she's going to be moving over there. She's going her plans right now.
Oh, great.
And I believe she'll be doing an addition on there. She'll be living upstairs and having her vet practice downstairs in there.
Oh, I didn't know that was upstairs.
Yes, so I think she's doing like an addition off the back.
Oh,
That's the
okay.
story.
Can't get away from it. That's-
No, she's been there for a long time, and for a long time, she's wanted to have her own real estate that she could have her own business in, so.
Well, sort of as an adjunct to that, John, the shopping center where your office is located has been there for a while, and it seems to me that it's always struggling for occupancy.
It ebbs and flows. on that.
What is there a plan for marketing that, or what's your forecast for what you can do there? And
So the property owner has been, like, so where my office was, I'm across the street back in my old building again that I've been
okay.
restoring.
Okay,
So I'm back on Main Street, not in the plaza, but that building where I was in, they have been converting those into apartments. And that was something we really needed too. So we worked with them and said, okay, you have your EDUs already set up, you have your space here. It's allowable within the zoning if you want to create apartments in there. So I think he's created 3 so far in there.
well, that's good.
Which 3 is a huge number for a town that only has 10 rentals, period. So, a 30% increase. With the remainder of those slots, the funny thing is, a lot of them are actually filled. They're just not businesses that necessarily take in customers every day. They're an office space, or someone rents it for a space for a purpose of that, but they don't necessarily open to the public, other than invite only. In a lot of those spaces, but most of that is pretty much full. It used to be, when it was first built, it was more for like, well, there was a farmer's market in there and a bakery and those sorts of businesses. A lot of it's gone more to professional services in there, that are in there. But I said the front building, that front corner building, that was the one that was full and that was completely empty. And then he's been working on conversion to make apartments.
That's the one that the vet was in.
No, she's next door in the second building.
Okay.
Where the photography place was, like the long one?
Yeah, so the long one, that's the library, there's a mortgage company, and another little church that's in there. That just meets monthly, I believe. So they're all full with something pretty much throughout there. There's 2 2-story buildings that he'll be working to kind of convert those into apartments. That makes more sense. They're right up on the road in the residential district, right on the edge of commercial. So it helps so those folks then can walk around town and things.
It would be nice if it didn't look so dead.
Yeah.
If you could put some plants around or,
Sure,
just
sure.
upgrade a little bit so it looks sort of less dead. Just something, not too expensive or whatever.
Well, that is one piece of the puzzle we're working with next. We're applying for a grant from Maryland Sustainable to do another round of planter and barrier boxes down Main Street. So we did a few. The hard part with that is getting them watered. And
Right.
as we see, we're in a drought this summer, and it's, I planted cactus-type plants out there and succulents, and it just, because I knew they don't ever get watered. So they're doing okay,
I hear
but
ya. Yeah.
that's the hard part, is doing landscaping, is then keeping it up.
Yep.
Because we have a maintenance crew of 2 for the whole town.
Mayor Carroll, thank you for coming in and sharing
you.
all these.
Well, can I ask one more question?
Oh,
Okay, he's over his limit. We're going to start paying him
This is a
now.
quick one. What's happening, if anything, with short-term rentals in Galena?
good question on that one. So we are working on our zoning text amendment. I would imagine by next month, I'll be ready to go to public hearing for that one too. We've got the draft pretty much finished now. We've been working for about 4 months on that to get it so that where they're allowable. And some just basic guidelines, kind of following the counties, and it's not just short-term rentals, it's all rentals overall, whether it's short-term or long-term. We're doing a rental ordinance, because we never had anything related to this. So everything has to be registered. Short-term or long-term, you tell us which way you're doing it. And then if you're going this way, okay, these are the rules. If you're going that way, that's the rules for it. And that's what something the zoning coordinator enforces.
Good.
So-
Thank you, sir. And
You're welcome.
as your projects evolve,
Sure.
you've got Jamie and her team to work with you, Shannon on tourism, Katie on economic development, and the rest of us for advice.
Sounds great. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right, next on our agenda, the next 15 minutes will be David Foster, Mayor of Chestertown.
Okay, thank you.
And you can speak in whatever octave makes you comfortable.
Okay. Just want to make sure that I can see can see that. All right.
And while you're getting situated, David and Charlie, if you guys have any questions, ring in.
Will do, thanks.
Will do.
And as I say, a man who needs no introduction, the mayor of Chestertown, David Foster.
Well, thank you. Now, I'm just trying to understand the mechanics of this. Will I be able to see what you see up here?
Right there.
Oh, on that one?
Yep.
Actually, let me move over there. Good, thank you. Really appreciated John Carroll's presentation. If there's anybody who doesn't know, he was the chair or president of the Maryland Municipal League for this past year and did an outstanding job. We really appreciate that. Good, thank you. Thank you for inviting me to make a presentation, and this is a modified version of presentation I use for WCL course, for presentation to Maryland Municipal League, DCA, and others. I really want to emphasize that we're focusing on what all our towns in Kent County have in common. And I think there's a lot there. We have common goals. We have common challenges. In fact, I think that we're all in the same boat. What affects one of our communities clearly affects all of us.
Can everybody hear, Mayor?
We're having a hard time. You need to speak
Yeah.
up, David.
Move the mic just a little bit closer.
Okay, excuse me.
Okay,
Sure.
that's good.
Okay. Punchline was we're all in the same boat. Rose, going to the next slide. And why is mine? Okay. Should be common goals. We all want to be able to protect the quality of life and improve services. We want to minimize taxes, and we want to improve the tax base. I've had an opportunity. I was previously in the Foreign Service. I've worked with local governments almost all over the world. You know, every one of them seems to have these same common goals. How do we improve services without raising taxes? And it comes back to building that tax base. We also have some common challenges. Kent County, each of our towns, expenses threaten to rise faster than our revenues. We actually are in a high-tax, low-growth state. I was surprised to see this from Governor Moore's presentation. We're in the bottom tier, Maryland is. Mm-hmm. We have one of the highest incomes, but we're in the bottom tier of the economic growth. Chestertown, Kent County, is in a state known for high taxes, high minimum wage, and we sit next to Delaware, which is clearly known for its low taxes. It's a real challenge to build our tax base when we're right up against Delaware. To look at a map of Chestertown here now. And Chestertown really is a mixed-use community. Yes, we're a college town, a waterfront town, historic town, and a working town. We're not a bedroom community. We're not a museum. We're certainly not an elite enclave. Look just a moment at kind of the demographics here. This is a surprise to most people. Yes, we have some high-income people, but we also have a lot of poor people in our town.
We can't hear you.
You can't hear me, I'm sorry. Okay, I will, thank you for reminding me, Paul. Okay. We have a number of fancy, very expensive homes and a lot of low-income homes, okay? That median household income of $44,339 is a surprise to most people because they come to our festivals, they come see on Water Street, and they envision that we're a much wealthier town than we are. Interestingly, Chestertown has about 1% of the area, a little less than 1% of the area of Kent County, yet we bring in 18% of the property tax revenue to Kent County. 26% of the income to Kent County. We are potentially an engine for economic growth of Kent County. I say potentially because I don't feel that we're fulfilling our true potential for the county.
David, we've heard your tax differential presentation before. Are you going to get to the business development and
I
tourism
think this has a
programs?
major impact
Okay.
on economic development. And no, I don't think, I've never made a tax differential presentation to this group. You and I have talked about it. I've not made the presentation to Paula or Judy.
Well, actually, you and I have.
We have talked, but not the same.
Well, we can get it on the record, so go ahead.
Okay. This was the request that I had made to Jamie earlier to make the presentation. If this is not what you want me to talk about, I'm happy to. But I had honestly thought that there was interest here in economic development of our county and our towns. If that's not the case,
That's what we want.
terrific. Okay, we're off and running. So, again, Chestertown does have the potential. On that same slide, let's back up one slide, please, Rose. Can't back up? Okay. There we go. Okay. We do have the potential to be a real economic engine for all of Kent County. And I think we all recognize that Kent County has real challenges, okay? Particularly with the unfunded mandates for education, a host of other expenses. Our costs are going up much faster in Kent County than our revenues. Just as Maryland is a slow growth state, Kent County is a very slow growth county. Okay, the next one. I think it's worth noting, for every dollar increase in Chestertown, the county will get $2.37. For every dollar increase in the income tax, Kent County gets $4.88. What's good for Chestertown will help Kent County. We appreciate very much the assistance of Jamie Williams and all the other people who have helped us in terms of economic growth. And I think that pays real dividends to the county. Next slide. Let's still look a moment at Kent County zoning. This is, I think, 2021. It may be slightly outdated, but I don't think it's changed much. 89% of our land is zoned for agriculture. I'm not challenging whether that's good or bad, accept it as a fact of life. But if we look at the next slide, that 89% really only provides 14% of our real property assessment, okay? Now, what this means to me, not that we should take land out of agriculture, but that we very closely pay attention to our other uses, our residential and commercial uses, because agriculture is not growing in terms of manpower or really in terms of GDP for our county, okay? It's necessary, we all need to eat, but it's not an economic engine. If you look in comparison to the other industries in Kent County, agriculture, forestry, fishing, hunting are only about 6%. Agriculture, despite its omnipresence, is not one of the big five of our economic engines in the county. Next slide, please. Still look at real estate, at our taxes, our revenues in Chestertown. And we're primarily dependent on real estate taxes. It makes up 61%. It's critical to us. The good news for that is that it's a fairly steady source of income. Recessions come and go, but property taxes stay about the same. Flip side is that that's not always the best for people who live in those houses. They may lose their job and their property tax stays right the same. Their business may fail and their property tax stays right the same. Next slide, please. If you look at Chestertown there, our property tax rate is actually one of the lowest ones around the county. I think we've done a great job in terms of efficiency, providing reasonably good services. 43 cents per hundred is pretty good. Next slide, please. Let's look what we use that fund for. Public safety and public works are the big kahunas there. Together, they make up 60% of our total expenses. Look closely at this slide. We basically have, on the left side, Kent County services, on the right side, Chestertown services, in the middle, what are referred to as parallel services. They're provided both by the county and by the town. Things like public safety, street maintenance, and parks. Okay? Residents of Chestertown pay for all of those services in the county. Nobody objects to it. And of course, we pay for education, social services, conservation. We do not object to any of that. We're happy to pay it. Even people who have no children in the schools or grandchildren, no problem. Where this is going, where we object, is that unlike 85% of the counties in Maryland, Kent County pays for none of those services in Chestertown. Next slide, please. This next slide is actually a little bit more like the situation in Galena, whereas we have a police force, we have lots of roads. Galena has just a few. It's a beautiful town. I'm impressed with what John is playing. But their expenses in terms of parallel services are much smaller than ours. Next slide, please. Again, I want you to look at this Chestertown municipal tax rate. That 43 cents still includes all those parallel services, our policemen, our roads, our parks. Next slide, please. Oops. Meant to emphasize it. Rose, is it easy for you to go back a slide? Okay, thank you. I want you to focus for a moment. Municipal taxes compared to other towns, we actually do quite well, okay? Now we're going to go back to this next slide. And once the county's taxes are added on, that's $1.02 per hundred, we become one of the more expensive towns around. This hurts our ability to compete with other towns. It hurts our ability to attract businesses, to attract residents. Many people will live in Queen Anne's County rather than in Kent County, even if they're working in Chestertown.
David, I apologize for interrupting again, but we're 10 minutes into the 15 minutes we've allocated for your presentation.
Okay, we'll move a little faster.
Do you have many more slides?
I do have a few more, but I'll. Next slide. This shows what other counties in Maryland have done to cope with this problem if their towns are handicapped by doing it. This dates back to 1986, and Maryland required 8 or 9 counties to provide a differential, a set-off. And other counties, it was optional. They were to sit down with their county commissioners each year and to discuss the issue. But it was optional. It was left to the counties. Over time, the last 36 years, one by one, almost all of the counties in Maryland have adopted some form of tax set-off for their own benefit because they recognized that their towns needed to be able to compete with other areas. 3 counties have still refused to do so. Most of those counties have actually refused to even discuss it, as the state law requires. This past year, we had a study done by the University of Maryland, the National Center for Smart Growth. It was an objective, unbiased study. It was a follow-up on a study done in 1997, again by an unbiased group. This study determined that Chestertown was overcharged as much as $913,000, Rock Hall $338,000, Galena as much as $48,000. Look at this next slide. Not only are we feel that, and this objective study showed that we were overcharged, if you look at where that money goes, red block to the left is median household income in Kent County. The dark blue one is Chestertown. The light blue is total municipal, including Rock Hall, Galena, and so on. But look at the right. That's the median household income in the non-municipal areas. So if you are overcharging Chestertown and other municipalities, it's to undertax those non-municipal areas. And this kind of sums up what we believe is happening. You're overtaxing what could be economic engines for development and using that to subsidize non-municipal areas. To equalize this, Chestertown would need a reduction of about 10 to 15%. This would result in about a 2 to 3% increase in the non-municipal areas. Those non-municipal areas, if history is any guide, are not likely to attract new industries for Kent County. They're not likely to add to the tax base for Kent County. So in order to penalize Chestertown, we believe Kent County is shooting itself in the foot. Consequences of the policy: we believe it arbitrarily penalizes relatively low-income people for the benefit of relatively high-income people. It limits the economic development for both Chestertown and all of Kent County. We are in a competitive race to attract new investment, and the current policy really ties one hand behind our back. And then finally, this policy of overtaxing municipal areas actually encourages inefficient urban sprawl, adversely impacting agricultural lands, and imposing higher cost infrastructure. That concludes. I think this is key to overall economic development. I'm disappointed that some people have been resistant to looking at some of the multiple, there are probably a dozen or more objective studies of this issue with bearing on Kent County. And far few people have been willing to look at it, and I appreciate very much your willingness to do so.
Thank you, David, for your presentation. At its August 20th meeting, you know, the commissioners said they're done with this issue for the rest of this budget year. What is it you're asking the Economic and Tourism Development Commission to do?
I'm asking you, as an economic organization, economic development organization, to look at the studies that are available, to look at the independent studies that are based on uniform financial reports that are available to Pat Merrick, the county's financial director. She looked at them, found no problems, no objections to them. And I'm asking you to look at them, ask yourselves, is this policy that's been adopted by 85% of the counties, to the benefit of 85% of the towns and counties in the state, why is it not applicable to Kent County? Our commissioners have said over the past 38 years, we need more time. This is all too soon. And many of them have also said, oh, we're too poor. And yet what you see here, if this what's going on right now, is money being, low-income areas are being overtaxed to subsidize high-income areas. The counter-arguments just don't seem to hold. But what I'd invite you to do is look at it for yourselves and see what you think. I don't believe that the county commissioners have ever looked at it. I know they have never discussed them with us.
We're going to stretch our time a little bit if our commission members have questions of Mayor Foster.
Yeah, David, I have a couple observations. Sure. And the map that you put up about which counties are taking action. They were distinguished by those that will, those that may, and those that haven't.
Right.
What is, and I have a second question for you, or second observation. What does may mean as opposed to will?
Right. Well, it's actually shall and may. And may means that they must, this is part of the Maryland law, they must sit down each year with each county, each municipality, and discuss the issue, if asked, okay? But they may or may not adopt the program. Thus far, all but 3, once they studied it, once they looked at their impact on their counties, they decided, hey, this isn't all bad. And that applied to poor counties, rich counties, urban counties, rural counties. Only 3 decided, hell no, we're not going to do it.
Not going to sit down or not going to pay?
Neither.
Excuse me?
Did not discuss.
But all those other green counties, which are all the other green, all
One
the other
by-
counties, can I finish?
Absolutely.
Are all the other counties on the Eastern Shore, have any of them agreed in this fiscal year to pay a differential to their municipalities?
All but 3 pay a differential or a rebate to their municipality.
Okay, so they have agreed to do
They have
that in
agreed,
this
and
budget?
not only have they agreed, year by year it increases.
Okay, all right, that answers the question. I don't have any knowledge that all of the the 5 municipalities in Kent have had a sit-down with the commissioners. Have they? Yes, Shelley?
Part of the budget process.
Okay.
Uh,
And
Shelley, was there a discussion at that meeting?
There was an opportunity
Purpose.
to hear from each of the towns, and there was an opportunity for the commissioners to provide feedback.
But did they provide feedback?
Their feedback basically was that they were not going to provide it, but that was a discussion.
Right.
all right. It just seems to me that there isn't a lot of communication on the issue of economic development between the municipalities and the commissioner's office. And as an observer, acute observer of economic development initiatives, I think those communications are vital. And I would encourage every municipality here to ask for and participate actively in discussions of future economic development. One of the problems that the county has in terms of making a more quote-unquote equitable tax assessment is that by and large, the majority of land in our county, the tax assessment and the tax bill is determined by the state, not the county. And so they don't have control over who they can charge what. So the issue becomes more difficult to resolve than suggested by your presentation because of the limits of assessment on agriculturally zoned land. So I think that needs to be taken into consideration. My view, as a member of this commission, and I'm not speaking for anybody else, is that the county really needs to look at land dedicated to commercial and residential pursuits as an opportunity versus agricultural land as an opportunity for the growth. I don't disagree with you about municipalities being engines for economic growth, but your land base isn't sufficient, in my view, to carry that currently. So I welcome the annexation here as an opportunity to expand in other areas where we have the latitude, both municipal and county, to increase our tax revenue and encourage that. So just some thoughts to think about there.
Thank you very much. I have, let me just grab here handouts for each of you. Top document is part of an annual report. It shows how each of the other counties addressed this issue. Some of them had challenges, but they worked around them. In the 38 years, I believe that our organizations are as smart and as capable as those other 85% of the counties that have been able to address this. The second piece in there is the study that was done by the University of Maryland. So, thank you very much.
I have just one quick question. I heard this rumor that the owner of the block where the new Sugar Doodles is, and that is doubling the rent?
Is what?
Going to double the rent, or has doubled the rent? Said they're going to double the rent, which is like atrocious?
That does sound, I'm sorry, you're my first source
Oh,
of
okay.
information on that.
Oh, there's two.
We'll see. I think the good news, if people have not heard, so we do have a buyer for the former 98 Cannon, Mr. Ergo, and we're looking forward to a restaurant that's replace 98 Cannon. That seems to be moving forward.
And his plan is restaurant only, no residential above it.
That's the current plan. And with regard to the Armory, that's still a little more protracted, but
David, we'd like to invite you back to do the business development
Yeah.
piece and tourism, but we're over our time.
that's fine. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Good.
We're on to staff reports. Jamie?
Yeah, I got a couple things I want to share. It was asked when the next economic development basic course would be held, and it is July of 2025. So when that announcement comes out, I'll make sure to share that. But before that, there is a primer that takes place in May of 2025. That's a one-day in-person. So that might be an alternative if you can't commit 5 days,
And there's a
commit one
requirement to
day.
be a member to take
For
either of those.
the basic course, yes, and you can take the basic course without being a member, but you pay a non-member rate. But for the primer, you don't have to be a member, and it's a one-day, like, immersion course.
We
So,
also have a conference coming up that
Yeah.
anyone can attend.
IEDC, yes.
MEDA.
You're talking
Right.
about the
They put
fall
together good
concert.
programs.
You do have to be a member to attend the conference, or at least pay you can pay the non-member rate. You're right, you can pay the non-member rate. That's coming up in,
September.
is it September?
Soon.
So,
Soon.
what, September?
End of the month, I think. 28th or something like that. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go back. I can't remember offhand.
Find it.
So there's that. And then Rose was at the Museums of Kent meeting today, and she shared the idea about coupons for the driving tour that takes place in June. Rose, did I get that all correct? Yes. Okay. And we inquired about the qualifications for the Maryland Department of Ag ice cream trail. They will be sending that out again for people to apply, but it does have to be the eligibility requirement. They have to apply and be approved, but the basic eligibility is they are on an existing Maryland farm and use milk they produce on the farm, or use an existing Maryland farm and use an ice cream mix from the milk processor that benefits the Maryland dairy farms. So right now, Lockbriar is the only one on that list, but they will be sending out applications to try to get more throughout the state of Maryland. Mako was a success. We highlighted hunting, Eastern Neck Island, arts and culture, just all the things you can do in the wintertime here in Kent County. Obviously, the shopping and all of that and dining goes along with that, but that's what we highlighted, but it was very well received. We will be participating in the Molly's Outdoor Expo, is that what it's called? Okay, and the Harrington Outdoor Expo in April. So Molly's is coming up this month? Next weekend, okay. And then the Harrington is in April, so we'll be displaying there as well. And then the last, let me just make sure I don't have anything else. One thing I did want to share, and I'll be sending this out in an email, Charlotte and I just were able to review it today. We have the 2023 tourism numbers, and spending increased from 71.8 to 72, a very modest increase of 0.2%. So that's for visitor spending. But you'll get the complete report, which has 3 pages that are specific to Kent County, but you can kind of see how we compare across the state as well. So I'll send that out to everyone. And this is the report that is required for the grant that we get for marketing Kent County. So we're required to pay for that report, and it's done every year. And the last thing is the BRE surveys, where we are with that. Just want to give everybody a quick update. We did get all the intake forms from the 10 businesses. We are now working on scheduling them, a little slower than we wanted to be, but with.
We're loaded with acronyms. BRE is Business Retention and Expansion.
Yep. So we'll be scheduling those. We do have the business list ready, so we should be sending it out to the commission to see if you guys have any glaring things, people that we missed, businesses that we missed, kind of help us out with that. And then we will cross-reference that with our business directory as well. I think that's it for me.
Any questions of Jamie on staff matters?
So I'm confused about the survey. Is that what you were just talking about, is
Yeah.
the survey? And
Yes.
so you're going to send it out after we look at, so it's supposed to go out in October, right, to tie in with economic
gonna-
development one?
Yep, we were going to try to do like a lot of spritz, like a lot of businesses in October. So we want to do some test visits in September.
So before the next meeting, you'll have the,
Yep.
and the board isn't going to be involved in that?
No, we're going to send out, if I get these, even for the 10 that we have right now that are just going to, are like test companies, we're going to, once we get a schedule, I'm going to send it out, and if a commission member is available to join us, yes,
Okay.
absolutely, join us. So yeah, we'll be reaching out and saying, hey, are you available? We're going to these 2 businesses in Rock Hall today, kind of thing. Yep.
And we'll be selective to a point on commission participation. We wouldn't want all 7 of us to descend
Correct.
on one company.
Or one person to go to all of them?
Correct.
You gotta-
Exactly,
Right.
the other extreme. But if we're in Rock Hall, we would expect Sandy to close her shop.
Nope, not happening.
So there's some scheduling challenges, but
Yeah.
it's going to be sent out, and you can volunteer for particular meetings.
Correct.
Okay, great.
Okay, other unfinished business? New business? No, we're ahead of schedule.
I have a question. Do we know anything about the short-term rental? It all last month, there were, is there
Yeah.
any
So-
reporting on that?
Yeah, we're about 4 to 5 weeks into it now, so it's still pretty early. And remember, people were used to paying quarterly, so they're not used to paying until July, August, September, the end of September. So, but we've gotten a lot of people already signed up. I have those Pat provided those numbers, they're upstairs, I don't remember them. But it will take a while for more and more people to come on board. The initial letters went out to current rentals as well as newly identified properties. We went through some today that were unidentifiable by the software company, and we did some internal research and were able to identify those properties, provided that information back to the Office of Finance so they can send out letters. And it's an ongoing process because new ones pop up every day. So it's continuing, but I can get some numbers. But the numbers, we'll get there. The numbers are good for only being 4 weeks. And like I said, people are used to paying quarterly. People have been on vacations, and then there's wrong addresses, things come back. So there's a lot of things that are being worked out as we go through. We think in another month, we'll have a lot more data, and at the end of the quarter, we'll have some really good data.
So when you say numbers are good, you mean percentage of replies?
Correct. And the amount of revenue that's brought in is on track with
Okay.
what we would
Let's
expect.
schedule that for a specific discussion at our October meeting.
Will do.
And speaking of our October meeting, we have Tom Mogul of the town of Betterton, his town manager, is going to come and give us his presentation on what's happening in the town of Betterton.
And
Other items for the...
Mr. Mackey.
Bill Mackey is
joining
going
us
to be
for
with
Planning
us.
and Zoning.
Director of Planning and Zoning.
Yep. Yep, and November's already full as well, because we do have John from Beacon to talk about the business sentiment survey, as well as Aaron from the Upper Shore, sorry, it's not Upper Shore, Eastern Shore GIS, to talk about the Delmarva Index. So that is something you guys had inquired about, so they're coming in November, and they'll give us an overview. And then we can, and then if we want to dive deeper into certain dashboards, because there's a lot of information on there, then we can have them come back and do that as well.
Paula has found what we're looking for.
Okay,
The META conference is October 28th,
October, okay.
and it's from 9 to 1:30 p.m. And it's at the Baltimore Museum of Industry.
That's right,
Nice
yes.
venue.
And the topic is the economy is international.
There we go.
Thank you.
Any other agenda items? I think that survey is a big deal, and it's maturing. We've had a lot of input. Under new business, we've talked about the superintendent's business roundtable. You want to add anything to the discussion?
How's everybody doing this afternoon? Good. All right. Yeah, I had a few things, just some updates. All of our schools are back in session. They started last week. We do have our new superintendent, Dr. McComas. She has been doing a lot of community meetings. She's been going out to a lot of community events. She's been going out to town council meetings, county commissioner meetings, and her next big public session is going to be a business roundtable that we're hosting on September 18th, next Wednesday from 2 to 4. We invite all of you to join us, and as Dr. McComas likes to say, we invite you to invite friends to come join us as well. The Dixon Group has offered to host, and we're very thankful for that, so it will be at their training center here in Chestertown. And it's just, Dr. McComas is really trying to help connect the schools more with the community, build that bridge, and also get to know the community herself. So this is a really great opportunity. All business types, large and small, she wants to hear from people.
Dan, several of us are already signed up,
Excellent,
so we're
wonderful,
going to be there.
wonderful.
Any questions of Dan?
What's the spirit for the school year and, enrollment and teacher retention, all that? How's that sort of been, generally speaking?
We're back where we need to be staffing-wise. We do have 2 new assistant principals at the high school, but both are internal promotions. We have Mike Eisman, went over from the middle school, and we just announced Monday night that Jory Mitzel from Rock Hall Elementary School has gone over to the high school as the assistant principal now. We're really excited for both of them being in the building. They both have a wonderful rapport with students, and we know they're going to do incredibly well, and they're going to be a great team with Principal Hemstetter there.
Then you have to backfill them.
What's that?
Then you have to backfill those positions that they held.
Yes, we are in the process of that, yeah.
And student enrollment is about the same.
It's about the same.
Yep.
The grade levels fluctuate. We are seeing so far an increase in pre-K enrollment, which is incredibly positive because we're going to have those students, the next 14 years.
Hopefully.
We're going to have them for the next 14
Good for
years.
you.
That's not a hope. That's going to
Here's your
happen.
feeder system.
Yeah,
Good idea.
That's-
great.
Dan, thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
Public comments, input for the survivors in the audience. I think just about everybody stayed.
Thanks.
That's a good thing. Any other business for the good of the cause? David or Charlie, do you have anything?
Yes, sir. I do not.
Well, one of you can make a motion to adjourn if you'd like.
So moved. Second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.